These two words are summary statements of what God wishes to communicate to man. Remember that communication leads to communion, and that communion leads to union with God. Learning the language of the kingdom of God is so important. It is the counter to the language of the evil one who speaks lies. Kind of came to me a few minutes ago. It's God's will to reveal. Is Satan's will to conceal. God is revealing things. He's opening things up for us. He's expanding our vision. He's helping us to see things that we've never seen before. And Satan wants to keep everything in the darkness, or at least distort it in such a way that he turns light into darkness. There are 7 truth concepts in John. I went back and did a whole study of the book of John, found 7 truth concepts in John, and I'll present to you 4 of them today. I'll present 3 more next week, God willing. You can see those truth concepts, I think, up here. Revelation, practicing the truth, worship, sanctification, freedom, the devil, spirit, and sanctification. We're going to take revelation, practicing truth, worship, and freedom today. We'll take those other 3 next week. Let's talk about revelation. I'm not talking about the book of Revelation per se. I'm talking about revelation, revealing something. There's a mystery. We want the revelation of it. We want the solution. We want it made clear. The most basic truth about truth is that it must be revealed. Now you may think, well, that's simple. Yeah, it is, but it's not so simple when it comes down to the way we normally operate. Man is always trying to figure something out. We're in the business of figuring things out. This has led to thousands of philosophies, to countless systems of belief, to myriads of theories on how things work, the divisions that have been created from all of that. Conflicting political systems have caused wars. Conflicting religious beliefs have caused strife. Conflicting systems of the world has caused separation. One thing that man should have figured out by now is that he's not very good at figuring things out. The most important questions of the universe: where did I come from? Why am I here? Where am I going? Man doesn't do very well figuring those things out. That's why God said, just quit trying to figure it out. I'll tell you where you came from. I will tell you why you're here. And I will tell you where you're going. I believe at the heart of many of the problems that we have in this world is human pride. I'd rather figure it out myself. And we can see it in men mostly. Women don't have these problems. We would rather not pull over and ask somebody directions. We want to figure it out ourselves. Right? Guys, there's just something in man that says, I am not asking anybody how to get there. I'm going to figure it out. I have wandered around many places trying to figure it out. I'm not going to ask anybody how to fix that over there. I'm going to figure that out myself. And after it has cost me an arm and a leg, then I say, I need some help. I don't know what it is about man that says, I got to figure this out for myself. But it doesn't always work out very well. So I want to take you through some scriptures here. In chapter 8, verse 40, here's what Jesus says. But as it is, you are seeking to kill me, a man who has told you the truth, which I heard from God. This Abraham did not do. In other words, he said, Abraham, when he heard the truth, he acted on the truth. He didn't try to kill God. He didn't try to put God to death in the sense that rejecting him. He listened. He was responsive. He had faith. He says, but as it is, you're seeking to kill me, a man who's just simply told you the truth. Paul, I think, asked the question in one of his letters. He says, have I become your enemy because I told you the truth? Sometimes we get mad at people that tell us the truth. Well, why? If it's the truth. Now, maybe we don't like how they said it, but even then, it's still the truth, even if they were mean about it. You know, many simply do not want to hear truth from God. I mean, I don't know. We just kind of come to the conclusion there's a whole lot of people in this world just don't want to hear truth. You know, there's a passage over in Matthew chapter 11 where Jesus is talking to God, and he's praising God, and he says, God, here's the way it works. You don't reveal yourself to the wise and understanding. You reveal yourself to little children. And then that's when he tells us, come to me. Take my yoke and put it on your head. Yoke yourself with me and learn from me. Whether you put your head in the yoke determines whether or not you're one of those wise, understanding people that don't want to be led around by Jesus, or you just want to figure it out for yourself, or whether you're a little child. It's so sweet when I'm with my little 4-year-old grandson, Lincoln. And it's instinctive that when we're going out of a building or crossing a street or going into a parking lot, I hold my hand out, and even before I held my hand out, he's lifted his hand up to grab my hand. I mean, that's just so sweet. He recognizes that he needs me to protect him and to make sure he's safe. Now, children don't always do that, but my grandchildren do. I mean, you know, I don't know. They're exceptional grandchildren. They're just exceptional grandchildren. Of course, Paul talks about that in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, that whole passage in chapter 18. He says, you know, the preaching of the cross is foolishness to many people. You read that whole section. I don't want to go through that. In chapter 8, verse 46, we're back in the book of John. Jesus says again, which one of you convicts me of sin? If I speak truth, why do you not believe me? Now, what is the connection between those two statements? Which one of you convicts me of sin? That's the first question. The second question is, if I speak truth, why do you not believe me? And I got to thinking about what's the connection between those two statements? Well, it's difficult to accept that Jesus was sinless, that he lived a sinless life. You ever meditated on that one? About how difficult that is? To live 33 years on this earth and never sin? That's just incomprehensible to us, I think, pretty much. But it's also very difficult to accept that not only was he sinless, he was perfect, he was without mistakes, he was fully knowledgeable. The one single source of all truth, the embodiment of truth itself. And belief in him requires a humility and the admission that we're sinners, in need, in darkness, not as smart as we think we are. But that's who we routinely go to. We go to physicians because we expect them to know more than we do. Even then, we might argue with them. We go to people that we think know more than us, but yet, on the other hand, it's hard for us to accept truth from someone that we think knows it all. And Jesus knows it all. Then in chapter 14 and verse 6, probably the most familiar statement of truth, Jesus said to them, I am the way, I am the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father but through me. Man certainly does not like to be told that there's only one way, one truth, one life. Because we know that if we're going to set out across country, there's a whole lot of ways to get there. We like diversity, we like variety, we like choices, we like options, we like especially those that put us in charge. We want to be in charge. The truth of who Jesus is a frontal assault to the nature of man who strives to be self-authenticating, autonomous, and always in control. And then when Jesus says, you're not going to get to the Father unless you come through me. All roads may lead to Rome, but not all roads lead to heaven. There's only one road. It's the Jesus road. Then in chapter 18 and verse 37, therefore Pilate said to him, so, you're the king? Jesus answered, you say correctly that I am a king. So far they're in agreement. For this I have been born, and for this I have come into the world. To do what? To testify to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth hears my voice. Now here's a real gut check. It's a very simple test. People who do not listen to Jesus are not of the truth. I could put that into a logical syllogism. All who do not listen to Jesus are not of the truth. In fact, they don't really love truth. They don't really love it at all. For this whole deal, and I'm reminded of this because of the movie that we went to see on Thursday night about Is Genesis History? Highly recommend the movie. Great movie. Dale Tackett, who did the Truth Project, was the narrator for this documentary. And some amazing things, some things I'd never seen before. Do you know that they have found, in digging up the dinosaur bones everywhere, in some of those bones, they have found tissue, actual skin tissue, not just bones, but the tissue of the dinosaur. And you know what big wrench that threw into the scientific world when they found that tissue? It began to say, wow, those bones must not be billions or millions of years old, because tissue would have broken down over millions of years. Maybe the earth is young. Maybe those dinosaurs roamed the earth not that long ago, because how else do you explain the existence of tissue? And it is clearly evident. I mean, even for a novice like me, it is tissue. It stretches. It has the molecular components of tissue. Jesus is simply saying here, look, if you really want to know truth, Jesus believed in a flood. Jesus believed in creation. He taught that in his ministry. And for all of us who go out here in the, quote, scientific mind and say that somehow we know better, poor old Jesus, he was just reflecting the mythological bias of his day. I'm going to tell you, don't discount one word of what Jesus said. Not one word. Jesus didn't just almost get it right. He got it right every time. And those who are on the side of truth will recognize that Jesus is a man of truth. And if he's not, he has no credibility whatsoever. It's not just that he made a mistake. Oh, he can't make a mistake. Remember? He doesn't make mistakes. Now I want to talk about the practice of truth. That's the revelation. The revelation is there has to be somebody who is smarter than me and you to tell us what truth is. Because we may figure some things out, but all we're doing is figuring out what God created in the first place. You know why mathematics works? Because of what God created. We may be discovering it. You know why that light bulb works the way it does? Because finally Edison got all the scientific principles lined up. And they worked. But it took him a long time to get it going. Okay, second thing, practice of truth. We have to have a revelation of truth, but we also have to have a practice of truth. In chapter 3, verse 21, but he who practices the truth comes to the light so that his deeds may be manifested as having been wrought in God. Now here's what I take away from that is that if you want to know truth, if you want to really experience truth, you got to practice. This is not theoretical. The truth of God is not theoretical, it's practiced. I learned a long time ago that the Christian life is an experiential life. There's lots of ways we can say that. You can talk about love, but love does. You can talk about faith, but faith walks. It is experiential. It has to be practiced in order to be real. To me, I have to test it. I have to prove it. It has to be incorporated into my life. But we see that with so many things in the world. We have theories, but when you have the practical application of those theories, that's when you know whether or not your theory is right or not, because you test it. You want to test whether or not the gospel is right? Practice it. Put it into your life. Implement it. Live it. I mean, you can debate till the cows come home about whether or not Jesus actually lived, or whether he died on the cross, or whether he was raised from the dead, or whether he's coming back again, or whether the Bible's God's word, or whether or not God created the heavens and the earth, or whether there was a flood. You can debate till the cows comes home until you put your faith into action. Then you'll know. Then you'll know. In Matthew chapter 11, verse 19, the Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say he's a glutton and a drunkard and a friend of tax collectors and sinners. But notice this statement, but wisdom is proved right by her deeds. Wisdom is proved right by her deeds. You want to know if something's wise? Test your theory. Test your wisdom theory. Put it into practice. See what happens. If it wasn't a good idea, it'll probably be pretty clear at a certain point that wasn't a good idea. That wasn't wise at all. That was kind of stupid. And sometimes we learn the hard way about those things. If you want to know more truth, you got to obey the truth you already know. Why would God give me more truth if I don't obey what he's already given me? This is as serious as it gets, because one day God's going to say, look, I gave you truth. I revealed this truth to you. I gave you an opportunity to put it into practice, and you just debated about it. You just simply debated it. Well, at a certain point, you got to quit debating, and you just got to do it. Now, the third principle is worship. John chapter 4, verse 23 and 24. But the hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. For such people, the Father seeks to be his worshipers. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and in truth. I want to ask you, do we have a natural right to worship God? I want you to think about that question. Do we have a right to worship God? I maintain we don't have a right to worship God. That is not a man-made, born right to worship him. We're designed to worship him. He designed us for worship, but it's God who seeks the worshiper. You see, what got turned around throughout human history is somehow it's man who is seeking God, the object of worship. And so what has man done? He's created idols. He's created all these images. He's created all these systems because it satisfies something in him, makes his crops grow, makes him have a bunch of kids. And so it's a turned around system. It's kind of like reconciliation. Is Christianity about man being reconciled to God? About our reconciling ourselves to God? No. It's a top-down system. He's reconciling himself to us. And the reason that is true is because there's nothing you can do to reconcile yourself to God. You have no capability of doing that. The only reason we have any right to worship is because God gives us the right to worship him. Hey, do you have a right to come into the presence of God? Only if he extends the scepter to you. Only if he allows you to come into his presence. Only if he makes a way for you to come into his presence. You see, this business about being a worshiper of God, he's seeking true worshipers, authentic worshipers, real worshipers. There's certain kinds of people that God's looking for to be his worshipers. You know why? Because when you say you're a worshiper of God, you're making a proclamation to the world that somehow your worship is a reflection of the God you're worshiping. You think about it, his reputation is at stake. If you give poor worship to him, people might think he's not much of a God. But if you offer up praise and adoration and humility and you espouse the awesome nature of God, they may look at that worship and say, wow, that must be an awful, powerful God you worship. But if you give him half-hearted worship, they may think he's a half-hearted God. God's looking for true worshipers. That's what it means to worship him in spirit and truth. Because you can click off a bunch of rules and regulations, check those off and say, you know, I kind of did it all right today. Took the Lord's Supper today. I gave some money today. I did all that. And God's saying, you think that's true worship? You don't get it. That is not what worship is about. Okay, last one. Freedom. Truth is about freedom. To the Jews who had believed in him, Jesus said, if you hold to my teaching, you are really my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. You've heard these things so often. The reality of truth is the only thing that can set us free. Now again, these are so simple kind of to understand and grasp, but there are profound statements. The person who rejects the teachings and the words of Jesus, they are destined to a life of slavery, not a life of freedom. The only thing that sets you free is knowing the truth about something. I can live in the reality if I know what the reality is. If I don't know what that reality is, then I'm a slave to whatever system I live in, whatever deception I live in. That's what controls me. And so, for instance, I know that I am a child of God. I am a saved person. I have the title deeds to heaven in my pocket because Jesus promised it to me. I know that there is nothing man can do to me to take away my relationship with God. I know who I am, I know why I'm here, and I know where I'm going. I am free. You can't do anything to me. You can kill my body, but you can't do anything to me because I'm free. I mean, what can you do to me? You can lock my body up, but I'm free. The person who believes that they are worthless, they need some truth because you're not worthless. The person who believes that they are lost, that they're a lost cause, they need some truth because you're not a lost cause. The person who believes that they are not worth saving, they need truth. The person who believes that they are smarter than God, they need some truth. The person who believes that all there is what they can experience with our five senses, they need some truth to open their eyes to the rest of the reality, the unseen world. Those steeped in tradition, thinking that they will be saved by those traditions, they need truth about the ground of our salvation. Those who believe that there's no God, that Jesus is not his son, that the Bible is not his word, and that they are more intelligent for their faith, because they have faith too, they need a whole huge dose of truth. Truth is the only thing that's going to set you free. And Jesus wants us to walk in freedom, not in fear. The perfect love of Christ, knowing the love of Christ in my life, causes me not have to walk in this world with fear. Because what can man do to me? I think people want to be free. Sometimes they just don't want the truth that will lead to the freedom. Well, revelation, practice, worship, freedom are aspects of truth that is contained within this statement that Jesus is full of grace and truth. Now, this division of the Central Church of Christ to help people to have an authentic and growing relationship with God the Father through Jesus Christ. That's our vision. So I want to do a little inventory today. This will be a little quick test. So you know this is a pop quiz. You didn't know you were going to have a little quiz today. All right? So I'm going to throw out some things, just a couple of words. I'll go through them fairly quickly, and you tell me. You tell God, not me. I don't want to know. Maybe I do want to know if I can help you, but I want you and God to have a conversation here. Because if we're talking about having an authentic relationship with God, a real relationship based on truth, then let me ask you about some of these. Do you have an authentic prayer life? Do you authentically praise God? Do you authentically live out the mission of God daily in your life to seek and save the lost? Do you have an authentic search to know God? Is that a quest that you are on to know Him? Do you authentically practice truth that you already know? You make it something that's very deliberate and intentional to practice the truth that you already know. Do you have authentic participation in the life of the church? Do you set an authentic Christian example before the world? Before your family, before your other members of the body here, for your children? Is it authentic? Do you have an authentic Christian family life, whatever that family looks like? Some of you are single. Whatever that family looks like, extended family, is it authentically Christian? Is your giving authentic? Where does it come from in your heart? Is your service to God authentic? How about your discipleship? Are you an authentic disciple of Jesus Christ? I wrote 2 of my grandsons a letter this week and sent it to them. And in that letter, I appealed to them to become authentic disciples of Jesus Christ. How about your love for the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit? Is it authentic? For me, when I put that word authentic on something, that means it's not fake. It's not a replica of something. It's not a knockoff of something. It's the real deal. Now, that doesn't mean in any of these things that I'm perfect in my prayer life or my praise or in the mission or any of these other areas. I don't want you to misunderstand. I'm not perfect in any of these areas. But I didn't ask if you were perfect. I asked if you were real. Are you authentic? We can say, easiest thing in the world to say, it is the mission, the vision of the Central Church of Christ to bring people into authentic relationship with God the Father through Jesus Christ. But if the members of this body are not authentic in those ways, what will we bring them into?